Welcome everybody. This is Vinny Eastwood here reporting for Advance New Zealand. New Zealand Public Party will be going live on the backup channel in just a few moments. Before we do, I would like to remind you that there is a protest march against the lockdowns coming up on Saturday at midday, Aotea Square, and Billy T. Kahika is going to be there. Today's episode is going to be hosted by Australian legend and YouTuber who has been recently banned in a number of ways, Max Igan, interviewing Billy Te Kahika. So without further ado, Max, take it away.
Hi Vinny, hi Billy, hi folks. It's good to be here, and it's going to be interesting. I haven't actually looked at your stuff, Billy, but I introduced interviewed a guy over here the other day called Ricardo Bosi, who's doing a similar thing. He's put a party together with the aim of, creating an entirely new political system. Basically, I mean, we can't really look at the parties we've got and think that we have a choice between any of these two. If we're going to have a political system at all, then we need to basically control it ourselves and put some people of integrity in there. So, and as Vinny said, I've been banned everywhere. My main channel has been deleted, 237,000 subscribers, 26.6 million video views, just deleted without any warning at all. Wow. I'm now on a backup channel, which has had 2 strikes put against it, and now I can't post there for 14 days. And so for anybody listening, there is another channel called TheCrowHouse 2, which I will try to upload a video to either today or tomorrow. But thanks for coming and having a chat with me, Billy. And like I said, I don't know anything about what you're doing, and I don't support politics at all. I just think all you get is Tweedledee and Tweedledum. By the same token, I can see that many people out there believe in the political system. They want to see a political party come to being that is going to lead them to safety. They need someone to lead them to safety. And as much as I think, common law and tribal law and all sorts of things are really the way to go, we still need a transitional point. So we need some sort of a replacement for the political parties that we've got. And that's what I believe you're up to in New Zealand, much the same as what Ricardo Bosi is doing here. So I just want to give you the floor for a minute and just tell me who you are, what your goals are, and what the aim of your party is, and why people should vote for you. Just sell it to me.
Thanks for that, Max. Kia ora from Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's always great to speak to our family in Australia, our cousins. And look, I just want to say straight off the bat, I don't like the politics. I don't like the political system that we have, and I think you bang on, mate, that we do need to start within that construct so that we can deconstruct it and repair it and re-establish it as a system that will serve the people rather than a system that tries to have the people serve it. And like many others that find themselves in my position now, I've never had any desires to be a politician, never had any desires to be in Parliament. I don't like the beehive itself. I've been there a number of times, but when I started making live broadcasts back in March about my observations around how COVID-19 was being managed by the New Zealand government, and then the responding to the announcement made by Jacinda Ardern late last year in August in New York, that she was going to commit New Zealand to full implementation of the United Nations Programme Agenda 2030. I never expected that when I started doing broadcasts and lectures around that it would turn into an epic viral social media phenomenon that would then demand that I take a stand to air these concerns that fair, reasonable, concerned New Zealanders have for this government. Concerns and questions that we have for the government, and nobody in the political landscape was standing up to actually say the things that needed to be said. And really, as a naive layperson, I thought, hold on a second, people need to know what's going on here and actually do their research and be provided with some information as to what's happening and where it could be possibly leading us. And by doing that, I found myself being the amplifier of not hundreds, not thousands, but not even tens of thousands businesses now, literally hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders that were thinking exactly the same thing, but didn't have a platform to say it and hadn't put it together in the same way that I had at that time. So the call to go into or to take a political stance was hugely resisted by myself, resisted by my wife, who wasn't keen to do that either. We live a very, very quiet life. We're private people. We help people in every way we can through our little ministry that we do, and we live on a beautiful rural farm in Northland, and we're very happy, thank you very much, distressed by what we were seeing, of course, and what we are seeing, but very much in our bubble. And so I very reluctantly accepted the call to go into politics, because I knew that if I didn't pursue this stand, that I really wasn't the person that I thought I was, and that's someone that does care deeply about our community and our country and the futures of our children. And so I decided that I would take a stance. In that time, immediately after, we formed the New Zealand Public Party, and that absolutely took off immediately. In New Zealand here, Max, you have to have 550 registered members to be recognised as a fledgling party officially. Normally that takes weeks, months, if not years. Some parties don't even achieve that. We did it in 2 days when we announced ourselves, and in fact we did just under 700 in 2 days, and now 11 almost 12 weeks later, we're at 7,000 odd members. We have the highest profile on all social media platforms. We have hundreds of people across New Zealand working for this people's movement, and we are now literally the largest independent political party, and we've achieved that in just a very, very short time. And part of that is being able to go into a situation where we've merged with Jamie Lee Ross, who is a sitting MP at the moment in the House of Representatives, and Advance New Zealand is our umbrella, which everybody gives their party vote to. And it's been a great relationship. It's a great partnership. It's a genuine people's movement, and we are all about, number one, restoring democracy in our country, because we know it's been eradicated quickly. The government no longer follows acceptable democratic processes. You see, what people don't often reflect on is that democracy is the mechanism for which freedoms are protected. It's not freedoms itself; it's the protectorate mechanic of freedom. And governments that are constructed within a democratic framework have to follow certain norms in the way that they carry out their governmental processes, and that includes making sure that there's transparency, accountability and integrity in the decisions that they make, and that they are for the benefit of our country. And when a government circumnavigates those processes, then it's a very, very slippery slope that we go down very quickly to where anything can happen. And what we're seeing now with the various laws that have been introduced into New Zealand, we have hate speech laws that are very, very broad. We have the internet filtering bill, which is very, very broad in potential application, because the government defines what they consider objectionable on digital platforms in terms of content. And we have, of course, the COVID-19 Public Health Response Bill, which gives anybody right that they authorise as a designated person to be able to come onto your property and take you and your family away and force a medical examination or procedure on you, and you've got no recourse about that. And it's only a suspicion that you may have COVID-19 that they can do that. So that can be broadly defined and applied in any which way they can. And so what we're saying is that law does destroy the New Zealand Bill of Rights, which is of course a necessary document that is meant to provide the protectorate again for governments to be restrained and not overreach. But what this government has done, it's very cleverly devised this COVID-19 Public Health Response Bill to circumnavigate the Bill of Rights, because there's a provision within the New Zealand Bill of Rights, Section 4, which says that they can do that in times of emergency. And so what we're seeing right now is far overreach of the government. So we need to repair our democracy. We need to repair our economy. Our economy, just like many countries in the world now, including parts of Australia, as you know, are being absolutely decimated by the lockdown strategy, which the WHO now says is a failed strategy that will not work. And our government is persisting with it. It's destroying our economy. It does not know how to fix it, doesn't know how to pay back this huge mountain of debt. So what we are going to do, we have a strategy and a policy that's going to cater for that. We've got a policy that's going to protect and handle medical and health sovereignty, and also examine the current corporate-friendly pharmaceutical sector, if you like. We want to unpack that and find out how that works, and get it set up so that natural health is recognised as a true and legitimate alternative to pharmaceutical and synthetic health. We want to eradicate international influence in our government. In particular, we've identified the genuine and real threat of the Chinese Communist Party in New Zealand. Both Labour and National have been identified as receiving funding through various channels of funding from the Chinese Communist Party. We need to eradicate that. We need to also ensure that national sovereignty is protected, and we need to look at all agreements, including any agreements with the United Nations or any organisation external of New Zealand, to make sure that they are serving the people. Additional to that, we have many other policies. We have housing policies. We've got agricultural policies coming out, firearms policies. We've got, you name it. We're not just a one-trick pony. We really are a broad base. We've got environmentalism. We need to eradicate 1080 in the New Zealand environmental landscape. We need to eradicate it, and we need to come up with better ways to control pests in our country. And I must point out right now that I've developed a bit of a heart for the old possum, because I've had someone send me some information about possums and the reality of that. And of course, they are the target species for 1080 drops. But the problem with 1080, it destroys soil, it destroys water tables, and also many untargeted species as well. So we've got policies around that. So we're a broad-based party, but the main important thing is that it's a party made up of real New Zealanders. None of us are groomed politicians. None of us are related to huge corporates that want to support us being VMAN in government. None of us are ex-United Nations. None of us are potentially going to be just control plants for any organisation that may have an interest of to having a politician within government. We're all ordinary New Zealanders. I call us fish and chips New Zealanders, because we're as everyday as that. And I believe now, with the massive growth that we've attained in such a short time, that we are the third opportunity. I agree with you in your earlier comment, Max, that the ping pong between left and right, red and blue, Labour and National, people are beyond that now, sick of it, and they want an alternative, and we are that alternative, and that's advanced New Zealand people's movement, nothing like it ever seen before in New Zealand political history. So I'm very, very proud to be a co-leader of that. So there's my pitch, Max.
Pretty good pitch, Billy. That's a pretty damn good pitch, I've got to say. And, with people who don't like politics, and as myself, I don't like politics. The problem is with a lot of the things you want to do to try to bring these criminals to account, because they're criminals. They're absolutely criminals. What we don't understand, what a lot of people don't understand in addressing this, is that they actually control the legal system. So it's very difficult to bring them down. So the only way we can really do that is if we control the legal system, and the only way to do that is to create a political party and to create an alternative to what we've got here. Because, as you say, red and blue, left and right, Tweedledum and Tweedledee. We've got a one-party system that has two faces, is what we've got. As I've tried to tell people, at the very top of things, you can even forget about countries and nations. We've got a multinational, multi-generational criminal cabal masquerading as a system of international governments, politics, and nations, and that's what it is. And people like Jacinda Ardern, she's not even in an abuse of power. She's in abuse of the office that she holds by using that office to delegate herself powers that she has no right to have. Most of the stuff they write down you can't even call law. It's mainly the causation of harm and legislating the causation of harm, as they've done with all this mandatory mask wearing and everything they're doing here. And it's a fraud. This whole COVID-19 scam is a massive fraud. There was a report that came out by UCLA the other day that pointed out that if you're under 54 years of age, you have a 1 in 19.1 million chance of dying from COVID-19. You've got probably 10,000 times more likely to get struck by lightning than what you are to die of COVID-19. And the response that they've made for this pandemic has always been the plan. The COVID-19 was simply the trigger they needed to initiate that response. And I think it's important that people get a focus on that sort of thing with these political parties and realise that what you're dealing with here is criminals, and we need accountability. We can't even see their legal system as being valid in any way, shape or form, most especially here in Australia. This corporate group of parasites we've got here masquerading as government in this country. I mean, our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, swore allegiance to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen of Australia, when he swore his office to go into power. I mean, Her Majesty, they're telling you it's a corporate system. You know, you don't stumble over your words in an oath of office. You know, if you stumble over your words, you'd repeat the sentence again. You don't say Her Majesty if you don't mean to say that. You know, so they're telling us what they're doing, and we've got to have a huge pushback. We've actually got a big rally here on the next Saturday as well in Melbourne. There's a rally for people listening to this on the 13th of September. It's at a secret location. The location hasn't been announced yet. Even the people who are organising it have done it anonymously, and they're leaving it to people like me to spread the information, because if they do it in Victoria, they'll get arrested for incitement, which is ridiculous, because the only person who should be arrested for incitement is Daniel Andrews for inciting his people into revolution like he's doing for adopting this communist model. And it's happening in all of our countries. So I think it's really important what you're doing, Billy. How do you feel about the whole COVID thing? I mean, I have no problem in calling this out as a blatant fraud. It's I don't even think hoax is the right word. It's a fraud. It's a provable, quantifiable fraud. The response is doing far more damage than any alleged virus, and it's something that is a serious issue that needs to be addressed. And I think it's criminal, and there needs to be criminal charges put against the people who are supporting this. Another thing I want to get your opinion on that I've been suggesting with people, and I think it would be a good response, is that, and it's from, I got this idea from Karen Brewer, actually. I don't agree with everything Karen says, but I agree with a lot of it. And she suggested that every shop owner, every business owner, you have the legal right to refuse service to anybody. Most people have their signs up in their shops. The management reserves the right to refuse service. Every business owner in New Zealand, every business owner in Australia should refuse service to any police officer, any politician, or any media personality, because these people no longer serve the people, and so the people should no longer serve these people. So any police officer comes into your shop, say, no, I refuse service to you until you start serving the people again. Same with any politician, same with any media personality. If they can't go and buy a cup of coffee, and they can't go to the supermarket, and they don't have the lunch trucks showing up at their workplaces because no one will serve them, then they're going to start thinking about what they're doing. Maybe someone will start breaking ranks, but I think that's a good response that everybody can do as well.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, Max, so I'll try and work through that as best as my memory can recall those questions, but I'll start with the first one. Number one, I think you're dead right, again, around accountability with governments that commit crimes against the citizenry. One of the things that I'm speaking very loud and clearly about is establishing first of all, a program to rewrite the New Zealand Bill of Rights, construct a proper constitution that will guarantee protectionism for the citizenry, so it protects us against an overreaching government such as the one that we've got. But what I also want to do is I want to set up a new ministry called the People's Commission. The People's Commission will be a separate and new independent ministry that will have jurisdictional and statutory powers to investigate areas of concern that concern the population, that concern the citizenry. That commission will be tasked to investigate a range of issues. The first one, of course, will be the COVID-19 response, because what we do know now is that, and I agree with you, there are absolutely, I called it out right up front that this government had it completely wrong, and I've been quoted in the media as well as calling it a pandemic. But what I do now is I'm staying factual, calm, credible on footing, because what we want to do is work with what we've got, because there's plenty of it there to condemn these people that are in this current government. So what we want to do is that we want to set up an independent People's Commission that will investigate this response, why, how, who, when, and if we find out that there is provable treasonous behaviour, those people will be brought before the courts of New Zealand. Additionally to that, that People's Commission will look at all sorts of issues ranging from how 1080 got into New Zealand, the process that 5G was approved. And again, I want to make it perfectly clear, I'm not against technology, and there are serious questions around how this government has introduced 5G into our population. And those questions are absolutely fair, logical and reasonable, especially when you have 1,000 scientists worldwide calling for more research to be done to prove the safety of 5G use within close proximity to human populations. And we've got to take notice of that. Also, you know, the Minister of Environment in Belgium banned 5G in there. And of course, Belgium is the home of the European Union Parliament in Brussels. And therefore, when someone like that of that stature bans it because she's not willing to risk the health of her population, we need to take note of that. So that's, you know, what I'm advocating is that we have independent, credible panel of scientists get in there and medical doctors and really research it. The problem that we have here in New Zealand is that the legislation that allows for 5G implementation in New Zealand is based on 1992 standards of assessment and evaluation of human health impacts from EMF. Now, back in 1992, those standards may have been fine for that technology then, but we are in a completely different technological paradigm now in 2020, where we are living in very, very strong technology use, and those standards that protect human health and how they're measured against these technologies is not up to standard any longer, but when it's based on 1992 legislation. What also underlines that, when we do compare the health standards in New Zealand that are used to measure potential risk in human health impacts, they are of the lowest standard in the world by far. You know, even other countries that have used it and perhaps are slowly implementing and rolling it out, you know, have much higher standards of assessment, evaluation, and standards for protecting human health than what we have. So what we need to do, we need to set up an independent People's Commission to do that. I also investigate that, and I also want to investigate every international deal that we've ever done, and that will be investigated by this People's Commission, and also to investigate past governments, ranging probably, we probably need to set some sort of limit on it. Maybe, you know, we don't have statute of limitations here in New Zealand, so we can basically go back any sort of length of time. But let's play the middle ground card. Let's say we investigate the last half a dozen governments. I want to find out who's who in the zoo that made international agreements, and if there are conflicts of interest, if there is questionable behaviour, we want to investigate those, and if required, you know, charge and prosecute retrospectively. And that's when you start to get really stuck into it. And if there's nothing to worry about, then there's nothing to worry about, and people don't have anything to worry about. I mean, I'm all about you know, using evidence to prove things either way, either for or against. Just use the evidence and look at that factually. But the question is there a government right now that is transparent and accountable and has integrity to do that? And we believe strongly no. And I agree with you that it certainly does appear that for decades and decades, both Australia and New Zealand and many other countries around the world have been victimised by people that have had very, very specific agenda to you know, either work for corporates, either work for overseas organisations, and it appears to be very clear that there are some deep concerns arising out of that. And what we need to do is be able to investigate that as a people's movement once we're in government, and get the very, very serious questions that we have answered. Because I cannot for the life of me understand how, if this government claims during the first lockdown that their information resource was the World Health Organization and the Centre for Disease Control and Prevention in the United States, I cannot understand for the life of me if they claim that those organisations were their primary source of information, that why are they acting in contradiction to those organisations today? Because of course we now know that the WHO has said very, very clearly that the lethality of the disease. Now I just want to be again state something very clearly. It's not really down to whether this disease exists or not. That's no longer the issue here. The issue is that they've created an issue out of it, and it's all the consequences emanating from that. That's what we've got to look at. And but if we attack the narrative based on the rules of the conversation that they've had to date, then what we've had is that when they first locked New Zealand down back in February, March, they were saying that this disease is between 3 to 6% lethality, okay, and that's extremely high, and that it was the worst thing since the 1918 Spanish flu. Now, when we all heard that, we thought, oh my gosh, this is serious. It's, I responded to it with concern and somewhat some fear for my whānau and I, my family and I, and my community. And but after a while, of course, you start to dig in, and you dig in more, and you get alternative information to where. And then I was listening to people like Professor John Leonidas from Stanford University. I was listening to our own experts here in New Zealand, like Professor Simon Thornley, who's the leader in the COVID-19 Plan B team, and he was saying very, very early up front that the COVID-19 was no worse than a nasty winter flu. And we were saying that as a political movement, and everyone was saying, you guys are nuts, you're conspiracy theorists. Well, hey presto, what's happening now? WHO has now come out and said this virus is the same range of lethality as the common flu. Lockdowns don't work. Elimination as a strategy won't work. We need to learn to live with it. We need to protect our vulnerable citizens, protect our vulnerable people, and make sure that they're safe and supported to be safe. But 99% of our population is going to come across COVID-19 and overcome it and go through it. The CDC has announced concerns with the PCR testing mechanism, which was never designed to be a diagnostic tool. We raised those concerns early on, and we were called conspiracy theorists. Now it's established fact that both of these organisations are saying these things, and it's now centre and mainstream medical knowledge. Now the question that we have is, why is this government in New Zealand persisting with its current strategy of managing COVID-19, which is destroying our economy, distressing people, destroying hopes, destroying lives, destroying marriages, people committing suicide because they're losing their livelihoods, they're losing their businesses. We've had more people die as a result of the lockdowns than what the actual disease has caused in New Zealand. We've had 23 deaths, we've had 2,000 cases thereabouts. Everyone's recovered, every one of them, and yet those 23 sad deaths, and every soul is precious, every New Zealander that is precious, but those 23 lives that have died pale in significance when you consider the 500 plus to 1,000 New Zealanders we lose a year as a result of flu, and we haven't locked down our economy for that. The other thing that we want to ask is, if they are destroying rights and freedoms based on the high lethality of the disease, well, that high lethality has been disproved now. Why are they persisting on and maintaining these laws that destroy democracy, destroy freedoms? And so these are very, very serious questions that we've got to fight for answers to. And Advance New Zealand, we are the only party saying this, Max. No one else is saying it. No one else has got the backbone to stand up and question the government. I've been called a conspiracy theorist in the media this week. We've had people make allegations against our party. I've basically been accused of being everything but a pedophile, everything that you can think of.
Well, that'll come. Just wait.
Exactly. Look, the latest one is, when I was 32, 33, I had a girlfriend over in Rarotonga that was 18, 19, and now it's like I'm a groomer and all this sort of stuff. And it just goes on and on. But what we've recognised, Jamie Lee Ross, my co-lead, and I, is that when these attacks go, whether it's about our finances or anything like that, a good point there, Max, is that we had someone in our party that was very, very highly up in our party that was a public, our party secretary, who we discovered really, really questionable behaviour with, so we removed her. She then tried to say that we had hundreds of thousands of dollars of collected finance that we didn't declare. She went to the media with it. She went to the Serious Fraud Office, went to Electoral Commission, and so what did we do immediately? We've published all of our financial records. They're on our Facebook. They're on our website. And what we've done is we've now challenged every other political party to do the same thing. And we're saying we're a people's movement. The money that people give us, it's all of our money, and it's geared towards one thing, and that's getting this movement into Parliament to bring all of these people to accountability. And so, you know, the allegations keep coming and coming and from all sorts. But you know what? We are absolutely determined. And what they don't realise is that the more mud and crap that they throw on us, it's actually fertiliser, because we're growing with it every day. You know, and that's what's to be expected. We have a very leftist media over here. There is no longer objective journalism here. We have a media that received tens of millions of dollars from Jacinda Ardern recently, and boy, you know, that old saying, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Well, this is exactly alive and well in our complicit media in New Zealand, and I'm yet, other than Vinny Eastwood, I'm yet to find any media that I would trust. It's despicable. I've seen nothing like it in my life.
It's the same over here, brother. We don't have any journalism in this country at all. Gagging orders, you know, against the media for doing anything. Do you think that Jacinda, you know, the rise of your party has risen so quickly, and recently Jacinda Ardern has delayed the elections, of course, you know. Do you reckon there's any connection between your party and the fact that she's delayed the elections? Because personally, I think she's going to get thrown out on her ass at the next elections. And if there's a party like yours to actually choose from, I don't think we're going to see Tweedledum or Tweedledee elected. And if you do get in power and you're looking at criminal prosecutions towards people like Jacinda Ardern and her party and the investigations into these parties, then they're going to be pretty scared of that election taking place. And you need to be a little careful as well. You'd be a marked man at this stage, brother.
I am a marked man, Max. Right now, you know, we've been through all sorts of drama, you know, and, you know, number one, I'm a Christian. The Lord protects me. Number two, I've got a beautiful wife that's behind me, and I've got a team of people that care about my well-being and safety behind me and around me. But, you know, I am under no illusion I'm a marked man as I'm sitting here talking to you today. And, you know, I'm determined that this movement gets into Parliament to bring accountability, integrity back into government. If we don't do it this election, we're never going to get another chance to do it again. It'll be gone. I mean, I agree with you that that this election is going to be the election that could throw Jacinda out, and I believe there's a good chance that will happen. Why do I say that? Well, number one, next week, 450,000 New Zealanders are no longer going to be receiving the wages subsidy that this government has been throwing out like a lolly scramble. We can't afford to keep going on that. We cannot do it. We're just gonna end up destroying ourselves, cannibalising our economy and our financial base here in New Zealand if we continue to do this. And this government doesn't have any clue or policy about how we're going to get out of this deep financial crisis of a rabbit hole that we're going down. And so that's going to be very, very clear to people in the next week or two, the reality that we're living in, that this government has thrown us into, without having the medical base to say it's justified, and that's corrupt in itself. We're going to investigate it, and I do, strangely enough, see a correlation between our media announcements that we make and the government's behaviour, and I'll give you a couple of examples as to why I believe that. 3 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, we made a comment on Facebook that we had found documentation online. We got the online notification and notice from the Ministry of Health here in New Zealand. We posted it on our Facebook page, which has millions of views, and we absolutely plastered it. I hammered the government saying, guess what? They're saying that there's not going to be mandatory vaccination, but look at this, point 4 on this notice says that they're going to, before someone can return back to work in this scenario that they're talking about, you need to have validation and confirmation that you were vaccinated. So that we absolutely pummeled the government for that, and guess what? 2 days later they took it down. Then they announced that they were going to mandatory test 70,000 New Zealanders and Aucklanders in South and West Auckland. We absolutely took that immediately straight to Facebook. We announced that we would take an injunction out in the court against the New Zealand government for doing that, because we felt it was a breach of the New Zealand Bill of Rights, and we were going to have them on about it. They put it out in 4 different places on the internet. It was out in their press releases that they were going to do that, and then 4 days later, Jacinda Ardern stood on a platform during a press conference, lied through her teeth, and said that it was a PR mistake, but that had been sent out, and it shouldn't have been sent out. They weren't going to do it. Yet it had been all over the media. And then we said a couple of weeks ago that there could be an indication of information that we had received that the government may look at lockdowns leading up to the elections. And guess what? Jacinda said last week there will be no elections after October. Now, my question around that is, if this is a emergency response to COVID-19, how the heck would she know that there's not going to be any lockdowns after October? That poses a very, very serious and logical question. How would she know that? What we did about 6-7 weeks ago, Max, we had received intelligence from people within government that had told us that this government was going to go into lockdown around the beginning of the 2nd week of August. We announced it, we published it, and hey presto, what happened? On the day, Tuesday, the 2nd week of August, we went into lockdown again. And we get information from inside government all the time linked to us. I've had military documents that expose that in March 25th, this government knew they were going to use military personnel to operationalise the COVID-19 response from a military personnel use and deployment purview. And we announced it, we took it to light, and this is the type of quality information that we're getting. So what I'm hoping is that when we do announce some of these things, that the government does modify its behaviour, because if it doesn't, then we can say, like we did all along all of these other points, we've said, hey, told you so, New Zealand public, this government is acting sensibly. We need to be vigilant, and we need to ask the big questions, and they need to answer them clearly and honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the DNA, the testing is insidious with the testing, the COVID-19 testing. Like you say, the PCR tests cannot actually test for infection. And there was an interesting news report that came out. I think it was would have been June, I think, where there was a report that came out that said China is involved in a mass DNA collection of citizens, and it's a big way that it violates human rights. And what it was that China was amassing the world's largest database of DNA of its own citizens, and it was part of a genomic surveillance program designed to weed out dissidents, right? So looking at the human genome, and then you look at the COVID test kits that New Zealand and Australia got, and they got them all from China. So the mandatory testing that they want to test so many people, what this is a genomic database they're compiling for China. That seems to be what's happening, and that's what's happening in Australia as well. There was a solicitor here called Serene, I can't pronounce her name, Tefahay or something like that, who said that all of these tests are coming from China. It's about DNA collection, so you've got to really look at what they're doing, and that's what they're promoting. It's a case-demic. The more people test positive, oh, look, we've got a rampant pandemic, but no, it's just a case-demic. None of these people who are testing positive for whatever it is you're searching for with this PCR test, which can't be COVID-19 because you've never done a Koch's postulate and actually identified it positively as existing. That's according to scientific research. That's not me making anything up, So, nothing that they're saying makes sense. And even in Australia here, they're saying in Victoria, oh, we've been testing the sewage and we're finding COVID-19 in the sewage, so we really need everybody to get tested. It's about gathering DNA. It's a DNA database. That's what they're doing, mate. It's all completely corrupt. And like, yeah, you're a marked man. And I think that, even the concept of cancelling the elections, I mean, what has this got to do with COVID-19? How has this got anything to do with the virus? Why do you need to delay any elections at all? And nothing that they say makes sense. It's so full of holes, and I really like what you're saying so far, brother. And I hope people support your party, and I hope that even if they do delay the elections, when are they saying there will be an election? Has she made any announcement at all?
No, she hasn't. Look, I'm sorry, mate. I just had somebody, one of my candidates, try and call me online. Can you just repeat the question, please?
Just Jacinda Ardern, has she announced when the elections are going to be? Has she said anything?
Sure, yeah, she has indeed. So the elections will be held on October the 17th. Special voting will begin, I believe, on the 3rd of August, and so they are going ahead. As she said last week, that there will be no lockdowns after October. So she's got to her crystal ball. She's got a crystal ball out. But the concern is
it's interesting too. How could they possibly know that? The virus has got a calendar now, has it? It's got a tape measure. It knows that if you're 1.5 metres too close to anybody else. It's got a calendar. It knows that there's not going to be any problem after October, so everything's going to be good. So how is this not a plan? How can anybody look at this? I mean, I've said to people, so many people now, there's so much information about this damn virus being planned and a scam that you can't even call it a pandemic anymore. It's more of an IQ test, So are you actually running for the next election? You're actually going for office in this upcoming election?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about that. So, there's no point being an external of government lobby group, and of which all the other minor parties essentially are. They are groups of people in these minor parties that we have here that have tried for years to get into Parliament. They've never done it, and they've scored so lowly in the previous elections that they've now got a culture of their protest groups, their lobbyist groups with no sort of capability to get into Parliament. And what we're saying is that our movement has to get in there to do this stuff to protect our country. If we don't, we're going to lose this country. There is nothing conspiratorial about that. The very things that us New Zealanders have grown up with as Kiwis and free-loving, fishing, hunting, vegetable growing New Zealanders, free New Zealanders if we look at all the behaviour and where it's going, where it appears to be going, we're going to lose those very things that we love about our country. If we don't defend that in this next election, then I don't believe we've got another chance after that. I really don't, and I'm going to be looking for somewhere else to live, because at the end of the day, this movement was framed with one intent, and that was to get a true people's movement and political party into government that had real ordinary everyday Kiwis in it, that are practical people that have what we call the number 8 Kiwi, the number 8 wire, fix it, no worries mate attitude in this government to put all the solutions together so that they can be implemented. We've got a government here that when they got into power, they announced they were going to build 10,000 new homes to help relieve the housing crisis in New Zealand. They built 156 of them. Then leading up to this election, they then add another 8,000 to that number, 8,000. So they built 156 of the first announcement in a program called Kiwi Build, which failed so amazingly, like nothing else has ever been announced and failed by a government before. There's nothing, I don't believe, comparable in recent memory, in my view, that compares to the level of failure around that. And these are the sorts of people that are in government right now that don't know how to get us out of the mess that they've created. And if we don't get into government and stand for office and win our parliamentary seats, then the New Zealand people that know what's going on and even the ones that don't know what's going on will never have a people's movement in there again that is really going to be a watchdog, and that's what's required. We need people that will stand there, and when something turns up that we don't like, they stand there with the note and they wave and go, hey everybody, guess what they're trying to do now? And that's what we're going to do, because we're going to take it to light. I'm going to do a live you soon after this, and I'm going to talk about these accusations that have come up. Any accusation that comes up, I take immediately to Facebook, Max, because that's my integrity. You know, someone said about, you know, earlier about skeletons. You know, I'm a Christian. I'm proud to be one in a humble way, and I always say to people, you know, you're allowed mistakes in your past. Don't allow people to turn them into skeletons. And one of the things that the New Zealand Army teach you is that, hey, be the first to, which I'm an ex-soldier, is, you know, be the first to admit a mistake. Don't allow people to turn them into skeletons. Golly jeepers, that's what they want to do, to turn mistakes in your past into skeletons. And I'd say, you know, let anyone that's never made a mistake or committed a sin throw a stone at me. Go for it, if you can say that. And there's not one of us that can do that to each other. And that's why we're such a broad-based party of a movement that is really a genuine bunch of New Zealanders and Kiwis and we've got immigrants in our party that are Kiwi, you know, that really are deeply concerned with what we're seeing with this government, where we're going. And back to that scenario before about ping-ponging between, you know, Labour and National. You know, we don't want National in there either, because they are saying the same things that Labour are saying. But I had someone else say to me recently, the difference between Labour and National is that Labour, you know, they move quickly, and with National, the rot settles in over a much longer time period. But the same destination is arrived at, because behind the scenes, we know that the same agendas are being worked to. The scripts that these parties are working to aren't scripts that have been developed from New Zealand, or from a New Zealand perspective. They are developed from, you know, something else. Just look at, you know, I mean, if we look at Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, you know, people thought that was a conspiracy theory. Well, it's not. It's a real program. When you study it, read it close, and you understand the terminology that they use in that document, then you understand that it is immediately about socialism and communism, and it's about destroying rights and freedoms that we expect in our countries, Australia included. And they're not conspiracy theories. They are facts. And this Prime Minister stood on a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation stage last year in August in New York, saying that she was committing New Zealand to full implementation of Agenda 2030, which is the end state program of Agenda 21 Sustainable Development when it's fully implemented. But the problem with that is she hasn't asked the New Zealand people whether we want to be a part of that. And part of that transparency process that we believe is fair and reasonable, and part of the democratic process, is that before any government goes and commits New Zealand to such a program that will radically change rights and freedoms and our lifestyle in New Zealand, they better take it to the people and ask us first whether we want it. And, you know, there's no way that 120 people in a parliament should ever decide the futures of the many in such a dramatic and drastic way, and that's what we stand against.
Good stuff, Billy. I like what you're saying, brother. I like what you're saying. Well, I wish you every success, man. I wish you every success. We need something similar here. I mean, Ricardo Bosi has similar ideas here in Australia, and it's good to see these sorts of things coming out of left field. And I think it's going to be a real threat for them. You know, it's something that's really putting a spanner in their works, the fact that we are having a political approach as well. You know, it isn't just people rambling about common law and all of these things, which are very difficult to implement, as valid as they may be. They're difficult to implement. But going and taking over the political system and taking over the legal system and changing it, writing a proper constitution, these are things that we need to do if we're going to have these societies at all. And it's a very delicate situation we find ourselves in, brother. It's out of control here over in this country, and it's just getting more and more out of control. I'm not expecting the border closures to ever come off, even between the states here in Australia. What Daniel Andrews has done in Victoria, I mean, a lot of this is, again, it's Agenda 2030. It's the Chinese system, the social crediting system, everything they want to implement. And, you know, for people to say Agenda 21 is a conspiracy theory, well, you know, all they've got to do is look at their countries. Go and read the document, and you have your governments telling you, oh, no, it's just a conspiracy theory. Well, look at what they're doing. Read the document, and then go and look at your governments for the last 10 years and have a look at what they've been doing, and you see the gradual implementation of this exact agenda. I mean, if people can't see this, they must have rocks in their head. I mean, this isn't any type of conspiracy theory. This is an absolute fact. So it's great that you're doing this, and I really hope you have every success with it. Get it out to as many people as you can. I'll share the information with as many people as you can. When I get my show back up and running, maybe I'll have you on my channel as well for another chat and see how you're going. And keep Vinny informed, and we're all in touch. And every success, brother. Is there anything else you want to say to wrap it up? Anything else you want to put out there?
Yeah, thank you, Max. Yeah, certainly. I think what we're talking about here is sovereignty, and we're very fortunate in New Zealand that one of our founding documents is a document in Māori called He Whakaputanga. He Whakaputanga is a pre-1840 Treaty of Waitangi document which guarantees sovereignty for people in our country. And people refer to it as a Declaration of Independence. It's not. It's a proclamation of independence, which is quite different. And the beauty of this document, it recognises everybody, every human as being sovereign, and it also recognises from that base that countries can be sovereign as well. And when we understand true sovereignty that's given to us by God, I believe, then everything else falls into place. And when a jigsaw puzzle is out of place, when you understand how it should look, then you start to understand that what we're dealing with is not a good and right system when those jigsaw puzzles are so arranged out of order that it no longer is a safe environment to be in. The other thing I want to say is that we want to restore personal sovereignty. We want to restore our national sovereignty and independence. And this rally that we're doing this Saturday in Auckland at 12 o'clock at the Aotea Square is a chance for New Zealanders to come together from all over the country and send a very, very clear message to this government and to any governments around the world that New Zealanders are awake to what's going on. More and more of us every day are becoming awake when we haven't been, and that this rally on Saturday, led by Advance New Zealand, is the opportunity to send a very, very clear message to the government that we are not going to tolerate losing our country. We are not going to tolerate having our freedoms and rights destroyed. We're not going to tolerate having our economy destroyed. We're not going to tolerate losing our right to choose. We're not going to tolerate losing our medical and health sovereignty and our national sovereignty. And I wanted to just say to everyone out there, please come along and support this movement. Let's send this government and all governments that are on the same script around the world that the people of New Zealand are not going to sit by idly and watch our country evaporate. Thank you, Max, for having me on today. I certainly look forward to coming on your channel soon. I want to say thank you to Vinny Eastwood, who's not a credible journalist. He's an incredible journalist, and we have TK Tuesdays every Tuesday. And Vinny really is a beacon over here as well, and you are in Australia, Max. So thanks to you both for making this possible today. Kia ora. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, brother. Absolute pleasure. And it was good to come and talk to you. It's really refreshing, actually, to hear this sort of dialogue coming from someone running for political office. And we need this sort of a grassroots movement in every country. We really do. People have got to understand that the people ruling us are just people, just like you. You don't actually have to do what they say, and it's this belief in authority. And when that authority is misplaced and these people are abusing their office they hold to give themselves powers they have no right to have, it's just not acceptable. So it's about time we stood up for ourselves and took this world back, brother. I love what you're doing. I think it's a great party you're putting together. It's been a great conversation, very refreshing to hear. And I didn't really know what to expect, and it's been great. And like I said, I wish you every success. And thanks for putting this together, Vinny. And Vinny is great. He's doing a great job in New Zealand. And it's good to see that there is still some form of journalism in New Zealand, thanks to people such as Vinny, because we certainly don't get it from the mainstream. But as I said, I think withdrawing service from all of these people is a really good option for people to do. It's something you can do legally. You have the right to refuse to serve any customer who comes to your business. So if the police no longer serve you and the politicians and the media no longer serve you, then why are you serving them? That's something I think we can all do. So thanks again, Billy, and thanks again, Vinny.
God bless. Thank you for having me.
All right, catch you later, guys. Okay. Okay, there goes Max Egan and Billy Te Kahika. This episode was produced by the Vinny Eastwood Show because Max has had his channel restricted. He can't upload video, so I was just like, look, bro, you're a mate. Let's introduce you to Billy TK and get the lowdown on what's up with him because, as he says, very, very refreshing, especially for anybody with any experience in journalism or world affairs to hear Billy speak and the things that he's saying. Speaking of which, let me see if I can show you guys a few things here. Just before we sign off, we've got about 7 minutes left in the broadcast or so, and I do want to thank all the mods in the chat room. Where's my webcam? There it is. Okay, and here we go. We've got the baby. It's just real cute eating a banana. It's very flappy.
Oh, you're so cute, puppy. Daddy loves you.
Yeah, so there we go. That's the reason I'm doing this, ladies and gentlemen. My cute little baby bubby, and I do want to again thank all the people in the chat room. I believe we can show the chat room here a little bit. Scott Latour, thank you too, Vinny Camp. Advanced NZPP is going to be the giant killer. We Are the Many. Join us on Saturday at Freedom Protest Everywhere. Just give a shout out to everybody in the chat room. Thank you very much. Patrick Sarah says Vinny's baby is the bomb. She is. And yeah, a lot of people really do dig the baby because it's just so sweet, you know. I mean, how can you resist? It's my bubba, you know. So, what was I talking about? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I do need to, just before we close out the show, thank my sponsors, Lixter.co.nz. I hope I can read this out. Let's set the market free again. Other trading website commissions can charge you like a bull. We won't charge you, and that's no bull. Lixter is an online aggregate marketplace of by and for every product, able to link buyers directly with sellers without taking a cut. A free alternative to TradeMe of the sellers for the buyers, a free marketplace for all. Go to lixter.co.nz or lixx.co.nz. And they're working on a algorithm and whatnot to be able to aggregate all of the major trading platforms together so that you could buy stuff off of Amazon or TradeMe or or eBay or whatever straight through Lixter, and they'll contact the sellers directly for you and not even take a cut. So there's no sellers fees, no buyers fees. And I would like to stress the need for an online free market. So when I heard the idea, I thought this was actually a really good idea. I mean, they're just getting off the ground now, and what I'd like people to do, I was thinking about this earlier, is if you've got, stuff that you want to sell, advanced New Zealand paraphernalia or anything like that, I was thinking, could we sell that off of Lixter? Because you can create a buyer's or a seller's profile on it. If you're a seller profile, it gives you like little banners, and when you list things, you don't have to relist them. If they don't sell, they automatically relist. So a lot of stuff that's good in there. Furthermore as well, of course, I mean, obligatory plug for the Advanced New Zealand Public Party in and of itself. So Billy's been sponsoring the show for, I think we're in our third month of sponsorship by Billy TK, and I very much appreciate the opportunity. And if you guys appreciate the support that I'm giving to Billy and Advance NZ during this election season and hooking people up and what have you, then please consider going to the VinnyEastwoodShow.com and making a donation, you can donate through PayPal. There's a little drop-down PayPal buttons, or if you just want to send a specific amount, guerrillamedia77 at gmail.com. Guerrilla like a soldier, a media like lies, and 77 like the English false flag. At gmail.com is the PayPal email there. In addition, I really do want to thank my KIWIBANK automatic payment people. My God, it's just some people have been donating, $1.50 a month or occasionally 50 cents here or there, for like years on and off. And it's really interesting that I've been around this show for such a long time and have so many long-time loyal supporters and listeners to the show. And I was reminded a while ago that I'm very ungrateful, that I'm a very ungrateful person, and I want to try and do something about that by saying thank you for supporting me all this time. The KiwiBank is the best way to support the Vinny Eastwood Show financially, because you don't get transaction fees or anything like that. Details are in the description. And what else? Patreon is good. We send out little messages through Patreon every day before the show, so that you have a private message with a link in it, so that you can join the broadcasts live. So that's very useful. If you donate in any way, shape or form, on the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com there is a little bit that says already donated, click here to get your special rewards, and there are 3 rewards for supporting the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. There is the unlisted playlist, including interviews with a former constable in the New Zealand Police who didn't want that video to be public, and probably for good reason. There's a lot of information in there that cast the police in a very realistic light, and unlike Hollywood, and the secret Vinny Eastwood Donors Club on Facebook as well, so you can join that in. And lastly, if you've got a great guest that you think that we could interview on this show, have you got the email? Have you got their Facebook contact details? Have you got their website contact form or something of that nature? When you make a donation, send it on through the contact page of the home of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com, and we will send them an interview request. Can't guarantee we'll get anybody, but we will guarantee that we'll try. So again, thank you very much to every single person who donates to the show, supports it in any way, shape or form. You've got to like this channel, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to share this video out with people if you think that it's important, worth listening to, and think about supporting the show long term, because it has been here since about 2007 is when I started making videos about the truth, because I see no alternative career for me, ladies and gentlemen. The only alternative is truth and freedom for all. If we don't all have freedom, then we have nothing, do we? It's like Samwise Gamgee said to Frodo at the end of the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How can the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those are the stories that stayed with you. Those are the stories that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. And the folk in those stories had lots of chances of giving up, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something, that there's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the Vinny Eastwood Show. I am not a credible journalist. I'm an incredible journalist.